All right, I think first of all, I'd like to start. I'd be remiss if I didn't, let everybody know our thoughts and prayers are obviously with Bill Little, his family. The impact that he's had here at the University of Texas, Longhorn athletics on a lot of fronts won't be forgotten. And I know there hasn't been a service date yet set, but I know John will get to you guys when that is. So on that front, just so we cover that. I think as far as for us and kind of where we're at and a little bit of a recap from the scrimmage, a little bit about kind of where we're going. I think the first thing coming out of two scrimmages and 2.5 weeks of camp, being healthy is probably near the top of the list of priorities for us. And you can't always predict. Sometimes injuries occur. The game is the game. But I think it's a real credit to our strength and conditioning staff of getting our players prepared for training camp. I think it's a credit to our training staff, and the job they did from a recovery standpoint of getting people, back to close to 100% every day. And when guys were getting nicked up, getting them back and getting them back on the field. So that was a real positive for us. As far as the scrimmage directly goes, I thought defensively they had a good scrimmage, and I think it started with their energy. I thought they brought really good positive energy for one another, and it showed. A lot of defense is about effort, and it's about attitude, and then you got to play right. And I thought that they brought that. I thought our run defense was very stout. I thought the defense did a nice job in the red zone of getting stops in the red area at times, although maybe the ball moved down the field, they found a way to get stops and to force field goals, which was real positive. And I think a lot of that, the run game and red zone stops started up front. I thought the line of scrimmage, our front seven is playing a really good brand of football right now. I was proud of them for that. And some of the guys that stood out up front, because I don't get to talk about everybody all the time. I thought Tavondre Sweat probably had his best day Saturday. And when he plays like that, we're a lot better because he's very difficult to block. I thought Leonga Lafau has really made a lot of strides from spring ball through the first 10 days or so of training camp, and had a really good scrimmage Saturday. I thought Ethan Burke had a really nice scrimmage. Both edges kind of getting solidified now, and I feel really good about those first three guys with Sorrell, Justice, and Burke, and what those guys can do. I thought Gavin Holmes had a really good week, and the week turned out to he had a really good scrimmage, and so that was a positive. And then the two guys that have been mainstays up front that have been kind of solidifying their spots and what they're doing. Obviously, Alfred Collins and Byron Murphy again. And so that front is tough. They're big, they're physical, they're athletic. They're playing really well together, and I think a lot of that stems from Jalen, just his communication up there at the line of scrimmage and getting everybody tied together. So that was good. I thought offensively, there's some good things. There's some things that we didn't do well, and I think that all boils back down to consistency, right? We weren't consistent enough offensively Saturday the way that I would have liked it, and so. And it wasn't like one guy or one position group. I think everybody kind of took turns. So we definitely have to improve upon that. We got too many drops. We had such a good camp up until that point of really catching the ball well and making plays, and the ball just found the ground Saturday. So we definitely have to clean that up. I was impressed with their third down wins. I thought the offense stayed on the field and extended drives with their ability to execute on third down, which has been a big point of emphasis of ours. We were not very good a year ago on third down, so to see them do that was good. It was great to have Xavier back. Really explosive day. Made a lot of big plays, big catches for us. Gunnar Helm has been as steady as ever. He's playing good football for us, just a guy to note. And our three young wideouts, they all didn't have the perfect day, but they've come a long way. When you talk about Jonte Cook, DeAndre Moore, and Ryan Niblett, I'm really impressed with those guys from where they're coming. From the quarterback standpoint, I really think their command has really improved, at their varying stages. I think Quinn, being a second-year starter, he's definitely in command of that first unit, and you feel good about that. I think that Arch and Malik both have grown in their roles and what they're doing in their command of the offense and taking charge. Obviously, we got to keep pushing consistency at that position, whether it's fundamentals, whether it's progression, whether it's pocket presence. whether it's tempo, whatever that looks like, but there's a level of consistency at that position that I think ultimately drives the unit. And so we got to keep working on that, which that's why we coach, But at the end of the day, for us to kind of, that being the end of training camp in our mind, with school starting today, now it's about creating really good habits, right? We talk a lot about in our team room about kind of the three phases of their life that they operate in, right? They've got their academic world, they've got their football world, and then they've got their personal and their social world. And managing those three worlds simultaneously, I think, is really important. And you do that through really good self-discipline. And you do that through creating habits that ultimately start to become the routines of how we operate on a weekly basis from Sunday through Saturday, and then recreating it again the next week. So a little bit of a different shift in focus. I will say for us, big picture wise, this week is really about details, right? We've got a lot of stuff in all three phases, and now we got to really start to tighten the screws on the details of how we want to operate. And so this will be a big week for that, and then obviously getting into Saturday, having the mock game where they can really get a feel and a sense of the routine from a pregame standpoint, and then we'll probably have about 50 or so situations that we'll work on Saturday, various things that come up in game that you got to be ready for from the sidelines, substitutions and different things. So a lot still to be done, a lot of work still to be done on that front.
You mentioned kind of preseason's all over to a degree. 12 days of the regular season. Timing-wise, when do you guys want to solidify all the starting spots?
By Saturday, because to be fair to them, they need to know who's the first unit, who's the second unit, who's the backup in all three phases, so that if a guy goes down, if a guy's shoe comes off, if a guy's helmet pops off, that next guy needs to know, who's going in. And so to be fair to them, we need to continue to compete. We need to continue to find the right combination of people. And the second part is, 12 days from now, we're playing at 2:30. And so to think, the same 22 guys are going to play every snap, probably not realistic, And so we got to find the right combinations of whether it's a safety rotation or corners or linebackers or receivers, runners, to make sure that we're getting a nice blend of rotating those players so that we're really strong for 4 quarters.
Is the man won the job at linebacker, cornerback, or running back?
I'm not ready to do that yet for those guys. I feel, like I said, I felt very comfortable. We played Saturday, the first kind of portion of that scrimmage, 1 versus 2s, 2s versus 1s. It's kind of hard to tell the difference. Sometimes, those guys are such a good rotation right now. I think that we've got a great rotation at safety. I think we got a really good rotation at corner going, really at the linebacker spot as well, and on the D-line. I think receiver-wise, there's probably a little bit of a gap between those first 3 wideouts and the other guys, and that's understandable. Those guys have played a lot of football. But again, different position groups are different to where I got to see what this looks like for a few more days before we really nail it down.
You mentioned the confidence and the command that Quinn has had on the offense. How much does that help the offensive unit as a whole, the players just kind of gain confidence?
Yeah, I think it's calming, right? There's much less anxiousness or anxiety amongst not just Quinn, but I think everybody, right? I mean, the quarterback permeates his feeling, right? And so when the quarterback permeates belief and confidence, I think that instills that not only in the other offensive players, but really the entire organization, right? I mean, that's why the position is what it is. And so I think Quinn definitely has a lot of confidence right now. He feels very comfortable with what we're doing. He's executing at a high level, but there's little things that we keep working with him on. And I think he appreciates that. I think he appreciates being coached because we're, ultimately, like every player, we're trying to make him the best that we can.
Can you size up what each guy at weak side linebacker, David Bendham, Mo Blackwell, Anthony Hill, what those guys are doing, how they're standing out?
Yeah, David, he's very intentional with his approach to what he does. He's had a really good offseason, winter, spring ball, summer. He's such an intense human that everything he does is full speed. He goes. And sometimes we almost want him tempo it a little bit, right? But so that he definitely brings that level of intensity and energy to the game. Mo, obviously a very versatile guy, and the fact that with a safety background, he has the ability to cover. He has the ability. I think he's a good blitzer. He's a violent player. When he goes, and he's violent at the point of contact. So definitely positives there. I think from Anthony's perspective, what he doesn't know, he kind of makes up for with instincts. He definitely has good instincts for the game. He might not be right, but gets his hand on a ball. It might not be the exact rush we're trying to get, but he finds his way to get to the quarterback. And so his instincts kick in. So everybody's got strengths. Everybody's got things that we're going to continue to work on. But I envision, at some way, shape, or form, all those guys will be on the field for us.
How would you grade how your team has tackled through 2 scrimmages in the first couple of weeks, and who are some of the better tacklers?
I've been impressed with the tackling. Sometimes you even think about the younger guys you'd be a little concerned with just because the speed of it and the size of it. But like Manny Muhammad's had 2 good scrimmages from a tackling perspective, which when we recruited him, I don't know if we thought that was going to be one of his strengths. We knew we were getting a long cover corner who did that. Leon Galafau had a great, tackle force fumble Saturday. So the young guys there too. But I do think Jalen Catalon, I want to give him some credit because I think he's brought an attitude about him, a physicality about him, and an intensity about him to go along with kind of what Bug brings that I think has set a tone of, we want to be a knockback tackling defense. We want to populate the football. We want to get the ball off of people and create more turnovers. And in turn, I think we've tackled well. Now, we tackled more early in training camp than we have historically. And that's why I credit the fact that we're healthy the way that we are, and we probably had a more physical training camp, I think has been impressive. So I feel comfortable, but we're not perfect yet. And, we had some opportunities, which I showed the team this morning, where we have to apply the drill work that we do early in practice when we work on tackling. You guys have seen some of that when you're there early in practice. We have to apply those drills in game, right? And when it's a sideline tackle, when it's a 2-on-1 vice tackle, when it's a cut tackle opportunity, we have to apply those things. And I think we missed some of those Saturday, and so that's something that we definitely can improve upon.
Your turnovers Saturday?
I think there were 2, if I'm not mistaken. I think there was a forced fumble and an interception.
You talked last week, I'm sorry, go ahead. You talked last week about being concerned a little bit with the energy dipping in the second half.
Yeah.
Was that addressed, or how did that handle it?
I thought it maintained well. I thought the defense, the first portion of the scrimmage kind of got the better of the offense. I thought the offense had a really nice 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. And then the offense came out in the third quarter and had a really good 3rd down, 4th down portion. And then the defense finished really well in our red zone lockout challenge. So much better energy, and we ran more plays. I think last week we ran just about 130. This week we just offense and defense, we were I think in the 150s. And so we ran more plays. We tried to get it more game-like than we had it the week before. We had a little longer halftime than we had the week before to really give them a sense and a feel of what it would feel like. And I thought, not only the players, I thought the coaches did a really good job at halftime of making sure our energy was right when we came back out.
Coach, when you do finally do your depth chart, how do you communicate that to your players, and especially to some of the guys who may not be ranked as high as they would like to be? What are those conversations like?
Real life, and I think that's why we've created an environment here where honesty works, and being transparent works. And, I don't think by the time we put a depth chart to the team and when we explain to them in their position meeting who's going to go with the 1s and who's with the 2s and so on and so forth, there's not going to be a lot of surprises, because we're very upfront with our players on a regular basis. And so we're constantly trying to improve them. We're constantly trying to give them the things we'd like for them to work on. We're constantly trying to show living examples of players that do it right and what that looks like and why that's how we want it. And we point out times when we don't do it right. And so that everybody gets a real sense and a feel of what we're looking for and how we try to get it done. So in the end, nobody likes to not hear that they're not going to be a frontline starter, but as long as they know what they're working on and how they can earn more playing time, I think that's fair, because I think that we've been fair all the way through.
Sark,
Was
you
there
mentioned
anybody
that.
in July that you weren't really counting on, and they opened some eyes and just kind of forced his way on the field?
I mean, I think a guy that's been impressive, Jelani McDonald is a kid who sometimes those kids that come in the summer, you get so consumed with the mid-years, and then these guys that show up in the summer, you don't really know. And you don't know in July because we're just doing skill development. He's a physical player, and he's got a high football IQ. So he's a guy that definitely kind of stands out to me, right off the bat. And I think Ryan Niblett's another guy. Just two guys that came in the summer to me that, as I'm watching them now, these guys are going to be good players for us. Is it going to be week one? I don't know yet. But I've been just pleased with the work that they've put in.
Sark, you mentioned the rotations. How much more comfortable are you as a head coach when you can rotate out of talent rather than out of necessity? And how much easier is that for you to go into a season knowing you have that depth?
Yeah, I mean, it is. That's the whole key to this whole thing, is that, you can rotate players. You can, if a player gets injured, the guy that goes in to replace him is more than qualified to do the job, and that his teammates can count on him, that he's going to do it right. But I think it goes beyond talent. I think there has to be a mindset too. I think that's dangerous when you just rely on talent to bail you out. And I think that's something this team is really starting to embody. There's a work ethic about them. There's a style of play about them. There's a level of intensity about them that make our practices very competitive and tough and hard. And in turn, when you don't operate that way, it shows pretty dramatically. And the players will be quick to let you know. And I appreciate that, because they want to be great. They want to have a great football team. And they know they need everybody. It doesn't matter. When we sit in a team room, as I talk to our players, everybody's got a role on our team. And, I get it. There's the Quinn Ewers, Xavier Worthies, of the world, the Jalen Fords of the world. But on that same note, there's that other guy who is getting him ready to play every week on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and how valuable he is to give the really good look, to push them to be the best that they can be day in and day out. And I do think our team has a great deal of respect for one another that way, that everybody has a role on our team that's going to contribute to our success. And when you can understand your role, and everybody can appreciate your role, and then you can do maximum effort in your role, man, that's when you have something pretty special. And so I would say the majority of our team really understands that aspect.
What would you say are your biggest concerns right now?
As always, as you build towards the first game, penalties are always the concern. You get into a game, and those are things that you can stub your toe, right? And it's the pre and post snap penalties that are concerning, right? The self-inflicted wounds, as I like to call them, right? The false starts, the jump off sides, the illegal procedures, the late hits. You're overly aggressive, right? And those are some of the things early in the season that can get you. Naturally, there's some position groups where I don't want to say I'm worried, because we're talented, but at some point by the end of this week, I've got to make that call, right? And that's part of being the coach, of saying, okay, who's going to be the first guy or first guys that jog out there, and then how are we going to rotate these people to maximize the depth that we do have on our team.
Steve, at receiver with guys like Amy and Isaiah who take the top off the defense, does that allow more shallow intermediate opportunities for a guy like that, similarly to how you get as a freshman? Yeah, no,
I think that one thing that we're seeing is, to your point, AD, Isaiah, Jonte, these guys are really good deep ball players. They have the ability to track the ball and go make contested catches. And when it's one-on-one, that's an advantage for those guys. And so now all of a sudden, when you got to pull a safety out of the top to go do that, that creates opportunities for Xavier to not always have to do that to create explosive plays. A lot of times he can do this. And when he can catch and run and get out the back door, like I think about his freshman year, he catches an in cut against Texas Tech, and he makes one guy miss a tackle, and then he can go score from a distance. And so It still ends up being a 60-something yard touchdown pass, but we only had to throw the ball 15 or so yards, and so that's helpful. But it also does, it helped him, he caught 2 deep balls Saturday, because, again, all the attention can't just be on him, and you have to worry about other people on the field now. And so when he does get those one-on-ones, I think that rapport with he and Quinn is important, and it was really nice to see Saturday that we're able to hit a couple, balls down the field to him, to where we can take advantage of that as well.
What does Ethan Burke do best, and how much have you seen him work?
Blue collar, man. He's a blue collar guy. I think he has great length. He's got length, but at the end of the day, the guy's a mechanic, man. He goes to work. He rolls his sleeves up. He doesn't mind getting grimy. He's always going to try to find an edge somewhere, and he's got good wits about him. He knows how to play the game, and so obviously coming from a great program at Westlake, I think he was taught really well coming out of high school. You see it with Bosick as well, but Ethan, just being a year advanced in the system, I think he knows how to really just play the game. But he definitely has a toughness, a griminess about him that we appreciate.
Start with your skill position at the receiver and running back, and then talking about the camp Gunners had. Do you feel like your personnel grouping options are maybe more diverse than you've had the first 2 years?
Definitely. We are very comfortable right now changing personnel groupings and having a lot of confidence in the guys that are on the field. The fact that we can go from 12 to 11 to 20 to 21, 10 for that matter. We can go to some big packages, using an extra lineman and different things. So that's part of our makeup. Historically, that's who we've been, and I feel like that. I've said this a lot. The more things we can do really well, the tougher we should be to defend. And so our job as coaches is how do we build this menu out to where you're getting ready to game plan against us. Okay, you're not really sure what you might get the emphasis on this week, and so you have to practice all those things too. And if we feel like there could be a weak link somewhere, then we can attack you out of a different personnel or formation, so on and so forth. And so to have that versatility right now is really encouraging. And like I said, I'm not even talking about JT, but that combination, those 2 guys have been really good. The receivers are good players, and we've got an array of runners that do a lot of different things well, which part of it sometimes is difficult because you're calling certain stuff when certain guys are out there. But it kind of brings me a little bit back to being in the NFL, where you've got really specific guys that you're trying to highlight in a certain way, and they know what their strengths are and what we're going to ask them to do, and they do it with real conviction because they're confident in what they're doing.
Who's your best wide receiver blocker? Who's your best blocker receiver?
Jay Witt's, I'd argue he's the best in our conference. I think he's phenomenal. He's got great strength. He's got a really high football IQ. He kind of understands where the ball's gonna end up, and so he does a good job of gaining leverage on defenders, and he's savvy. I think good blockers are savvy, right? They know when to engage, they know when to get their hands and when to get a little bit of a tug, but not make it look like a hold. So he's probably the best one.
Coach, time for 2 last one. Piggybacking on what Jeff Brad just asked, because of the talent and the depth that you have, does that give you more options on special teams? I know you want to play your best guys, but does it give you an opportunity to put some young guys on there as well?
It does. And I think that's, where Coach Banks does a great job of, a lot of times early on in camp, as we go, we're learning the players, and, Jalen Ford, we know, is a really good guy on kickoff coverage, like Demo and those guys were a year ago. But sometimes you put a guy behind him that, man, this guy's going to be a player, so he can learn from that, and all of a sudden Jalen can come off, and that next guy stepping in can be that type of player. And so sometimes you try to back those guys up, your frontline starter guys, with guys that are gonna grow into that role.
Have you had a chance to chat with Demo? You just brought his name up. I know both of y'all are busy, but
yeah, I did. I reached out to him yesterday, and he responded right back. It's a real bummer. I hate it for him. It was odd. I actually talked to Dan Quinn earlier in the week, and he was raving about him, of how well he was doing, and he was. We all were seeing it. But I think Demo's actually in really good spirits. I talked to him yesterday before his MRI, and he reached back out afterwards, and so he's in good spirits. He's in good hands, and he'll be back. But nowadays, these surgeries and things, it's not what they were 15, 20 years ago. So he'll be back, and he'll be playing great football for them. Thanks, Coach. All right, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.